Have you ever felt like a relationship in your life is taking away your happiness, confidence, or sense of self-worth? Maybe it's someone who always leaves you feeling upset or unsure of yourself after talking to them. Over time, these feelings add up and you start to feel drained. Sometimes even relationships with family or close friends can become harmful. It's important to recognize when it's time to let go, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself. Today, we'll talk about 9 clear signs that it might be time to walk away from a relationship, no matter how close the person is to you. Think about this. Is there someone in your life who makes you feel guilty, judged, or like you only matter when you're doing something for them? If the answer is yes, you might be dealing with a toxic relationship. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His words remind us that we can't always change other people, but we can choose how we respond to them. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean, it's about protecting your peace and showing that you value yourself. What are some signs of a toxic relationship? One is constant guilt tripping. Does this person make you feel bad to get what they want? Another sign is harsh or repeated criticism that leaves you doubting yourself. Toxic relationships are often one-sided, with one person always taking and the other always giving. Making space isn't selfish. It's like taking care of a garden. You remove the weeds so the healthy plants can grow. When you step back from harmful relationships, you create room for better, more supportive connections. It's not easy to let go, especially when guilt gets in the way. You might think, but they're families, or I've known them forever. These thoughts are normal, but staying in a toxic relationship can do more harm than good. You deserve to feel safe and respected in your relationships, no matter who the other person is. Letting go doesn't mean blaming or hating the other person. It means choosing to take care of yourself. When you create distance, you take back control of your emotions and find your inner peace again. As we go through this, I'll also share one of the most subtle toxic traits that many people miss, and how spotting it can help you break free. For now, take a moment to think about the relationships in your life. Do they make you feel good about yourself, or do they bring you down? If this topic speaks to you, don't forget to like this, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tips on how to build strong, healthy connections and find your peace. 1. Avoid people who make excuses about money. Do you know someone who always seems to have money for themselves, but never contributes when it's about you? Maybe they treat themselves to luxuries like expensive clothes, trips, or hobbies, but suddenly cry broke when it's time to split a bill or join plans you've made together. At first, you might brush it off, thinking they're just having a tough time financially, but over time, it can start to feel like more than a money issue. It's a lack of respect and value for the relationship. I had a friend like that once. Whenever we planned something fun, like a dinner out or an event, he'd say he couldn't afford it. I believed him at first, thinking he was being honest about his situation. But I started noticing a pattern. He had no problem spending on things he enjoyed, like weekend trips or new gadgets. The issue wasn't that he didn't have money. It was that he didn't prioritize our time together enough to invest in it. This realization was hard to accept. I valued our friendship, and I wanted to believe he felt the same. But actions speak louder than words, and his choices made it clear where his priorities lay. Relationships, whether friendships or romantic partnerships, are built on mutual care, effort, and respect. When one person consistently takes without giving back, it creates an imbalance that can leave the other person feeling undervalued and hurt. It's not about the money itself. Small gestures, like contributing to a shared meal, showing up for plans, or even finding free ways to spend time together, can mean a lot. They show that someone values your presence and is willing to meet you halfway. When those gestures are missing, it's a sign of a deeper issue, a lack of reciprocity. In healthy relationships, there's a natural give and take. You don't keep score, but there's a balance that makes both people feel appreciated. When someone consistently prioritizes themselves over the relationship, it can be exhausting. You might find yourself always adjusting your plans, covering costs, or making excuses for their behavior. It's important to recognize these patterns and address them. Have a conversation with the person and express how their actions make you feel. Sometimes people aren't aware of how their behavior comes across, and an honest talk can lead to positive change. But if the pattern continues despite your efforts to communicate, it may be time to reassess the relationship. Letting go of a one sided relationship isn't easy, especially if you've invested a lot of time and care. But staying in a dynamic where you're not valued can take a toll on your emotional well being. You deserve relationships where both people contribute equally, whether it's money, time, or effort. Take a moment to think about the people in your life. Do they show up for you the way you show up for them? Healthy relationships are a two-way street. If someone is only taking without giving back, it's okay to take a step back and prioritize yourself. After all, real connections are built on mutual respect, care, and effort. 2. Avoid people who argue over everything. Have you ever found yourself around someone who turns the smallest disagreement into a full-scale fight? What starts as a simple difference of opinion quickly spirals into tension, leaving you feeling drained and frustrated. Relationships like these can be exhausting, especially when peace seems impossible to maintain. I once had a friend who fit this description perfectly. On the surface, he seemed confident and self-assured, but any conversation that didn't go his way would quickly escalate. During a casual group discussion about plans, what started as a minor disagreement turned into him pulling me into a heated debate. He wasn't satisfied until he'd won the argument, regardless of how it made others feel. That day, I realized something important. I couldn't have a peaceful relationship with someone who constantly stirred up conflict. Not every disagreement needs to end in conflict. Healthy communication is about understanding, not winning. A wise person doesn't argue to prove they're right. They listen, respect others' perspectives, and aim to find common ground. But when someone values being right over maintaining harmony, it creates a toxic dynamic. People who thrive on conflict often mask their insecurities by asserting dominance in conversations. They may appear confident, but their need to win every argument reveals deeper issues, perhaps a fear of being wrong or a lack of self-worth. While it's natural to want to stand up for your beliefs, constantly seeking validation through arguments shows a lack of respect for others' feelings. Being around someone like this can take a toll on your well-being. You may find yourself walking on eggshells, avoiding certain topics, or even questioning your own opinions to keep the peace. Over time, this behavior chips away at your sense of safety in the relationship. If you recognize these patterns in someone close to you, it's important to set boundaries. Start by addressing the issue calmly. Let them know how their behavior affects you and express your need for more respectful communication. For example, you could say, "I feel uncomfortable when our disagreements turn into arguments. I'd like us to find a way to talk without things escalating." Sometimes people are willing to change when they understand the impact of their actions. But if the conflict continues despite your efforts, it may be time to step away. Protecting your peace and mental health isn't selfish, it's necessary. A relationship that consistently drains you isn't sustainable. Remember, the people you surround yourself with should bring positivity and support into your life. Disagreements are a natural part of any relationship, but they should lead to growth and understanding, not constant tension and fights. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Are there people who leave you feeling unsettled after every interaction? If someone repeatedly drags you into pointless conflicts, it's okay to let go. Prioritize relationships built on mutual respect and understanding, because peace is far more valuable than proving who's right. 3. Avoid people who dismiss your worries. We all face struggles in life, and sharing them with someone we trust can be a source of comfort and healing. There's something reassuring about knowing someone cares enough to listen and understand. But what happens when the person you turn to brushes off your problems and shifts the conversation to themselves. Moments like these can feel isolating and make you question the strength of the relationship. I remember a time when I opened up to a friend about the stress of juggling work and caring for my aging parents. It was a particularly hard period, and I hoped for some empathy or even just a listening ear. Instead, he quickly redirected the conversation to his own work stress, as though my struggles didn't matter. That moment stung. It made me realize that the relationship wasn't built on mutual respect or care. True respect in any relationship lies in listening, really listening. It's about being present and showing that you value someone's feelings. When someone confides in you, they're sharing a piece of their vulnerability, trusting that you'll treat it with care. Dismissing that trust by centering the conversation on yourself not only invalidates their feelings, but also erodes the foundation of the relationship. Of course, everyone has their own struggles, and it's natural to want to share them. But there's a difference between mutual sharing and dismissive behavior. A balanced relationship involves give and take, where both people feel heard and supported. When someone consistently shifts the focus to themselves, it becomes one-sided and emotionally draining. If you've experienced this, you know how disheartening it can feel. You might hesitate to open up again, fearing your feelings will be brushed aside. But it's important to remember that this behavior reflects more on the other person than on you. Some people struggle to empathize because they're too caught up in their own world. While this might not come from a place of malice, it doesn't excuse the harm it causes. So, what can you do? Start by setting boundaries. The next time someone dismisses your concerns, gently redirect the conversation. For example, you could say, I understand you're dealing with a lot, but I really need to talk about this right now. This helps you assert your needs while still acknowledging theirs. If the pattern continues and they're unwilling to change, it may be time to rethink the relationship. Confiding in someone who doesn't value your feelings can leave you feeling worse instead of better. You deserve to be surrounded by people who listen, care, and offer support when you need it most. Take a moment to think about your relationships. Do the people you trust show genuine empathy when you share your struggles? If not, it's okay to seek out others who will. True connections are built on mutual respect, appreciation, and care. Don't settle for less than what you deserve. 4. Avoid people who force their beliefs on you. Whether it's about religion, politics, or lifestyle choices, we've all encountered people who try to impose their way of thinking on others. What starts as a simple conversation can quickly turn into a debate, leaving you frustrated, unheard, and emotionally drained. Relationships like these often struggle because they focus more on control than understanding. I once had a friend who embodied this behavior. He firmly believed his views were the only correct ones, and he made it his mission to convince others to agree with him. Every conversation, no matter how casual, would spiral into an argument about why his beliefs were superior. At first, I tried to engage, thinking we were simply exchanging ideas. But over time, I realized these debates weren't about sharing or learning. They were about him needing to prove he was right. The constant push to defend my perspective left me exhausted. Instead of feeling closer to my friend, I felt increasingly distanced. I started avoiding certain topics altogether, walking on eggshells to keep the peace. But even then, his need to dominate the conversation created tension. That's when I understood that healthy relationships aren't built on forcing agreement, but on respecting differences. In a truly supportive relationship, both people feel safe to express their thoughts without fear of judgment or coercion. It's not about convincing the other person to change their mind. It's about listening, understanding, and sometimes agreeing to disagree. Respecting someone's autonomy means accepting that their beliefs and choices are valid, even if they don't align with your own. When someone constantly pushes their opinions on you, it's often a sign of insecurity. They may feel threatened by differing viewpoints or believe that validating your perspective somehow diminishes their own. While it's not your responsibility to fix this mindset, it's essential to protect your peace. If you're dealing with someone like this, try setting boundaries. For example, you can gently steer conversations away from sensitive topics or say, I respect your opinion, but I'd rather not debate this. This approach allows you to assert your needs without escalating the situation. However, if the person continues to dismiss your boundaries and insists on controlling the narrative, it may be time to reevaluate the relationship. Constantly defending yourself or avoiding conflict isn't sustainable. You deserve relationships where your thoughts and feelings are valued, not dismissed or overshadowed. Letting go of a controlling dynamic can be difficult, especially if the person has been a significant part of your life. But maintaining a connection that drains your energy and undermines your self-worth can take a serious toll on your emotional well-being. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, respect your individuality, and celebrate the differences that make each relationship unique. Take a moment to reflect on your connections. Do they respect your right to think and believe differently? Healthy relationships prioritize understanding over control and embrace differences as opportunities for growth, not as battles to win. 5. Avoid friends who leave you feeling uneasy. Sometimes, relationships that once brought us joy begin to feel distant. It doesn't necessarily mean anyone is at fault. Life changes, and so do people. Growing apart is a natural part of life, but it can be difficult to accept, especially when you've shared meaningful memories with someone. A colleague once shared a story about his childhood best friend. They had been inseparable growing up, sharing countless adventures and secrets. But as they got older, life took them in different directions. Careers, new friendships, and personal growth created a gap between them. Their once effortless conversations became forced and awkward. He felt guilty for the distance, but eventually realized that clinging to a connection that no longer fit wasn't healthy for either of them. This experience is more common than we often acknowledge. Relationships evolve, just like people do. What bonded you at one point in your life may no longer resonate as your priorities, values, and experiences shift. It doesn't mean the relationship wasn't meaningful or that the person wasn't important. It just means the dynamic has changed. Letting go of a relationship doesn't erase the memories you've shared. Those moments still hold value, and they've likely shaped you in some way. But holding on to a connection that no longer feels natural can create tension and prevent both people from growing. It's okay to recognize when it's time to step back and allow the relationship to change or even fade. Sometimes the hardest part is overcoming the guilt or fear that comes with letting go. You might think, I owe it to them to keep this friendship alive, or worry about hurting their feelings. But forcing a connection out of obligation often does more harm than good. Authentic relationships thrive on mutual understanding and effort, not on guilt or a sense of duty. If you find yourself in this situation, start by reflecting on the relationship. Are your conversations fulfilling, or do they feel like a chore? Do you genuinely enjoy spending time with this person, or does it feel like an obligation? Honest answers to these questions can help you understand whether the relationship still serves you. When stepping back, approach the situation with kindness and respect. Acknowledge the value of the connection you shared, but also honor the changes in both your lives. You don't have to cut ties abruptly or burn bridges. Instead, let the relationship naturally settle into a form that feels right for both of you. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting or dismissing the importance of the past. It means appreciating what the relationship gave you while making space for new connections and experiences. Growth often requires change, and that's okay. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Are there connections that feel more like a duty than a joy? It's okay to cherish the memories while also respecting the natural evolution of your lives. By doing so, you create space for both yourself and others to grow and thrive. 6. Avoid people who constantly complain. We all need someone to listen when we're struggling. Sharing our feelings and burdens with a trusted person can offer comfort and relief. However, there are times when a relationship becomes one-sided, with one person consistently using the other as an emotional dumping ground. This can be draining and leave you feeling exhausted, especially when your own needs and feelings are overlooked. I once had a friend who seemed to call only when she had problems to unload. Whenever we talked, it was always about her struggles, her work issues, her family drama, her personal challenges. I didn't mind listening at first. I believed in being there for friends. But as time went on, I realized something was missing. She never seemed to ask about me, my day, or how I was doing. The tipping point came when my mother became seriously ill. I was overwhelmed with emotions and worried about her health. But during that difficult time, my friend's focus remained solely on her own problems. Despite the heavy weight I was carrying, she didn't pause to ask how I was coping. It was as though my feelings didn't matter. This moment made me realize how much I had been giving without receiving the emotional support I needed. It was tough to accept, but I knew I had to set boundaries. I couldn't continue to let someone's constant negativity drain me, especially during a time when I needed emotional strength. I gently communicated my feelings to her, explaining that while I cared about her, I also needed space to focus on my own well-being. Setting that boundary wasn't easy, but it was necessary for my mental health. Healthy relationships are based on mutual care and support. When one person consistently dominates the conversation with their problems and refuses to acknowledge the other person's needs, it creates an imbalance. Emotional dumping can leave you feeling unheard, unseen, and emotionally drained. It's essential to recognize when this dynamic is harming you and take steps to protect yourself. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't care about the other person. It simply means you're prioritizing your own emotional health. You have the right to step back when a relationship becomes one-sided or toxic. True friendship, or any healthy relationship, involves both parties feeling supported, heard, and valued. If you find yourself in a similar situation, it's important to reflect on the relationship and assess its impact on your well-being. Are your emotions being respected? Are your needs being met? If not, it's okay to politely set boundaries and even distance yourself from people who consistently drain you. In the end, you are responsible for protecting your mental health and emotional energy. Don't let someone else's negativity take away from your peace. Seek out relationships where both people listen, support, and care for each other equally. Surround yourself with people who make you feel valued and heard, and make space for connections that nurture your well-being. Take a moment to think about the relationships in your life. Do they leave you feeling drained or uplifted? Prioritize those that bring balance and respect. And remember that it's okay to say no when someone's emotional needs become too much to carry on your own. 7. Avoid people who break promises. A promise is more than just words. It's a sign of trust, respect, and consideration. When someone makes a promise, they are signaling that they value your time and your relationship. But when promises are repeatedly broken or plans are forgotten, it's a clear sign that the person doesn't respect you or the time you've set aside. This can be both hurtful and frustrating, especially when it becomes a pattern. I once had a friend who constantly broke promises. It started with small things, canceling plans at the last minute or forgetting about commitments. But one day I made plans to meet her at a coffee shop, and she stood me up. The message I received was simple: totally forgot, sorry. This wasn't the first time it had happened, and it wasn't the first time I had felt let down. But this particular instance made me realize something important. I deserved better. Healthy relationships are built on trust. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful connection, and it's nurtured by consistency and reliability. When someone repeatedly fails to honor their commitments, it chips away at that trust. It makes you question whether the person truly values your time and whether they truly care about the relationship. In this case, my friend's repeated behavior made it clear that her actions didn't align with her words. Promises, big or small, are a reflection of someone's respect for you. When someone continually breaks them without genuine remorse or effort to improve, it's an indication that they're not prioritizing the relationship. I struggled with this realization for a while. I wanted to believe that she didn't mean to hurt me, but the truth was that her actions were speaking louder than her words. Every time she broke a promise, it left me feeling unimportant and dismissed. The more it happened, the more I realized that I couldn't keep investing time and energy into a relationship that wasn't being reciprocated. It's important to recognize when this pattern starts to affect your well being. If you find that someone is consistently unreliable and dismisses your time and needs, it's okay to walk away. You deserve relationships where your time, feelings, and commitments are respected. Setting boundaries is a healthy and necessary response in these situations. You don't have to accept mistreatment or wait around for someone to change. If someone isn't taking your relationship seriously, it's okay to prioritize your own well being. It's not about cutting people off carelessly, but about recognizing when a relationship is no longer serving you in a healthy way. Remember, relationships are a two-way street. They require effort and respect from both sides. If someone continues to break their promises without showing a genuine effort to change, it may be time to step back and focus on relationships where trust and respect are mutual. Take a moment to think about your own relationships. Are there people who repeatedly break promises or make you feel unimportant? It's okay to let go of those connections and make room for relationships that honor your time and commitment. Trust and respect are the cornerstones of healthy relationships, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who value both. 8. Avoid people stuck in the same complaints. We all face challenges, and sometimes it helps to talk about them with someone we trust. Sharing frustrations and seeking advice can be a healthy way to cope. However, when someone repeatedly brings up the same problems without taking any action to resolve them, it can become exhausting. It's not just the problem itself that's draining, it's the lack of effort to create change or find a solution. I once had a colleague who constantly complained about her job. She'd tell me about her dissatisfaction every day, listing the same issues over and over. I listened with patience at first, offering suggestions and advice when I could. I even suggested possible changes she could make to improve her situation. But no matter what I said, she never acted on any of it. The same complaints would come up the next day as though nothing had been discussed or resolved. Over time, I started to feel worn out. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. It's just that I couldn't keep hearing the same complaints without seeing any effort to make things better. I wanted to be supportive, but it was becoming clear that she wasn't interested in changing her situation. She just wanted to vent. It felt as if my time and energy were being drained with no real progress or resolution. Eventually, I had to set a boundary. I gently told her that while I understood her frustration, I couldn't keep having the same conversation without seeing her take steps to improve her situation. I explained that I cared about her, but I couldn't continue to listen to the same complaints without any effort toward change. It was a hard conversation and it upset her, but it also brought me peace. This experience taught me an important lesson about relationships. Friendship isn't about endless sympathy or constant venting. It's about growth, honesty, and mutual effort. While it's important to listen and support each other, it's also essential for both people to be committed to making positive changes. If someone repeatedly brings up the same problem but refuses to try and fix it, it can create a one-sided relationship that leaves the other person feeling emotionally drained. Setting boundaries in these situations is crucial for maintaining your own mental and emotional well-being. It's okay to be honest about how you feel, even if it means upsetting someone. In the long run, it's better to speak up than to silently suffer through the same conversation over and over again. If you find yourself constantly listening to someone's complaints without any action being taken, it's important to ask yourself why you're tolerating it. Are you afraid of upsetting them? Do you feel obligated to always listen? True friendship involves honesty and a willingness to grow together. If someone isn't open to change, it might be time to reassess the relationship and decide whether it's worth continuing. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Are you in connections where growth is encouraged, or are you stuck in cycles of endless complaints? Healthy relationships should offer both support and progress. You deserve to surround yourself with people who not only share their struggles, but also work toward solutions. 9. Avoid people who brag too much. It's normal to talk about achievements and successes, and it's something we all do from time to time. Celebrating milestones or reflecting on past accomplishments can be a way to share personal growth and feel proud of our journeys. However, when someone constantly boasts about their past achievements, it can start to feel shallow, disconnected, and even uncomfortable. Instead of creating admiration, this habit can drive a wedge between the person and those around them. I once knew someone who repeatedly talked about the awards and recognitions he had received years ago. He would bring them up in almost every conversation, regardless of the topic. At first, I listened, thinking it was a moment of pride for him. But as time went on, I noticed that he rarely talked about his current life. His conversations were filled with past glories, but there was little focus on what he was doing now or how he was growing today. While it's natural to reflect on past accomplishments, living in them can create a sense of disconnection. I began to feel like I was talking to someone who was stuck in the past, unable to engage with the present. There was no room for mutual sharing or growth in those conversations, just constant reminders of a time when things were better. True confidence comes from living fully in the present, not from clinging to past successes. Achievements are important, but they shouldn't be the only story we tell about ourselves. A healthy relationship, whether it's with friends, family, or colleagues, thrives on mutual engagement and growth. When someone continuously talks about their past without showing interest in the present or future, it leaves others feeling like they don't truly know the person in front of them. It creates a barrier, making it hard to form genuine connections. Confidence rooted in the present is about embracing who you are now, not who you were. It's about being open to change, growth, and vulnerability. When someone is constantly looking backward, they miss out on the opportunity to connect with others in a meaningful way. Instead of a conversation about shared experiences and current interests, it becomes a monologue about what was. Building stronger relationships requires being present, not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually. If you find yourself constantly talking about past achievements to the exclusion of your current life, it might be time to ask yourself why. Are you seeking validation, or are you simply proud of those accomplishments? It's okay to be proud, but it's also important to show others who you are today and engage with them on a deeper level. If you want to create deeper connections, focus on the present. Share your dreams, your challenges, your experiences, and your growth. Celebrate where you are now and where you're going. People are more likely to connect with you when they see you as a whole person, someone who is living, changing, and evolving, not just resting on past laurels. Let's build better relationships together. If you found this helpful, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, life is too short to spend it around people who drain your happiness. Choose relationships that uplift, inspire, and encourage you to grow. Surround yourself with people who support you in the present and the future, not just reflect on the past. Let's build better, more fulfilling relationships together.